Talking about getting stabbed in the back. Kamala Harris does not deserve the gig that she has right now, let alone the gig that she's auditioning for. I mean, let's just be honest. She was not able to get elected to anything. In fact, the few things that she was given to do in this administration, she actually fell flat on her face doing. She was what they called the border czar. Remember that one? I remember that. That was her big assignment. I reported on it, and I kept saying, like, when is she going to go to the border? When is the border czar going to the border? Well, now she wants you to forget all about that, including the fact that she was actually the border czar. Her team's like, no, she was never a border czar. It's like, wait a second, guys. She was. You guys, you even called her the border czar. And yet they suddenly have amnesia. This is like gaslighting once again on steroids. And I would just say, hey, you know what? You guys don't control the media anymore, and we're not going to fall for it. Our friends over at Media Research Center, better known as Newsbusters, they actually put a little tape together proving it. You know what? She was the border czar, and no matter how much you're going to try and back away from that, you can't. Watch.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
I mean, I don't even always play the entire clip. That one I just had to, right? Because it's incredible. Incredible. They're actually just lying through their teeth. I don't understand it. I think that maybe I'm just too literal. As a journalist, I can't lie. I just can't lie to you like that. I can't sit there and say, she wasn't the border czar. I don't know how these people do it. I mean, how do you look at yourself in the face? It's not like they're new to the scene. A lot of those people have been in the media business for quite some time. So it's not like they just graduated from college and, you know, they were partying a couple years ago when she was named the border czar. No, they were reporting on it. And then now they're reporting something entirely different. So New York Post caught up on this. They're saying media suddenly changes its tune on calling Kamala Harris the border czar, despite having given her that title. I guess they realize maybe that title doesn't really fit with her woke agenda. A woke agenda that's all about opening the border. Like anybody wants that. I mean, again, these people are not smart. They're not smart because if they actually thought through the policies and what everyday Americans actually want, they would realize pretty darn quickly, people don't want open borders. The economies in these local communities cannot handle it. The schools can't handle it. The police departments cannot handle it. The hospitals cannot handle it. In other words, you need a border czar. You need 10 border czars, for goodness sakes. You need a whole border team. She couldn't get the job done. She never wanted to get the job done. And now she's trying to back away from the very thing that she was supposed to do in the first place. So Kamala Harris has a very sketchy track record. And this is the woman who we're putting up to be first female president of the United States of America. Think about her background. I mean, we don't have to go there, but I think you know some of it. we had to watch the Montel Williams tape the other day. So she dated some celebrities. She dated a guy who's 31 years older than her, who was the former mayor of San Francisco, whose building I used to live in. This would have been post-Kamala time, however, because it was around the year 2000. I was once told by the door person, this is my special San Francisco story, that I had to move my car, which had been temporarily parked in the mayor's extra spot because he used to have some lady friends that would come and visit very, very late at night. And she wanted to make sure, this is the door person, it was a woman, that she didn't have to wake me up at 3 a.m. to move my car. So she called me at like 9 o'clock and was like, can you please move your car? So anyway, he had a wild and crazy life, entertaining all kinds of people to all kinds of hours there. This was Kamala's boyfriend. He happened to be married, albeit separated at the time. I mean, very, very messy stuff. Okay. And then she went on, she became the senator from California. And then I want you to think about this. She was not somebody who was really ever very well liked within the party, certainly not by Joe Biden himself. Dr. Jill, if I were you, I would have kept this lady really, really far away from my husband, especially after she pulled this. I think we got the tape. Let's take a little memory walk down memory lane here, back to 2020, when Kamala tried to single-handedly destroy the almost former president of the United States, Joe Biden at the time. Watch.
Educated about the history of race in the United States.
Ms. Williamson, thank you very much.
Vice President Biden, we're going to get to you. Hang on, we're going to get to
stage. I would like to speak on the issue of race.
Senator Harris,
and what I will say is that
if I could preface this, we will give you 30 seconds since we're going to come back to you on this again in just a moment. Go for 30 seconds.
Okay. So on the issue of race, I couldn't agree more that this is an issue that is still not being talked about truthfully and honestly. There is not a black man I know, be he a relative, a friend, or a coworker, who has not been the subject of some form of profiling or discrimination. Growing up, my sister and I had to deal with the neighbor who told us her parents couldn't play with us because we were black. And I will say also that in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true, number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King. Number one. Number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, the busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education That's what I opposed.
Well,
I
there
did
was
not
a
oppose.
failure of states to integrate
No, but-
public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a
So
local
that's where the
decision.
federal government must step
The
in. That's why
federal
we have the
government must
Voting
step-
Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass the Equality Act. That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all
I have
people.
supported the ERA from the very beginning when I
Vice
ran for
President
the
Biden,
Wow. And you picked her? I mean, you know what? Shame on you, Joe Biden. You picked that woman. She never liked you to begin with. She nearly tore you down. It's just that people couldn't stand her. So literally, like within seconds of that entire episode back in 2020, her poll numbers sank. It was game over for Kamala Harris after that. So what does somebody who's woke, super left, Californian, checks every box do? I guess you cozy up to Barack Obama and you get yourself somehow on the ticket as Vice President of the United States of America with a guy who is, well, so old that he may not make it. And then what do? They get their first female president of the United States who also happens to check a few other boxes. Wow. I mean, so that was a pretty, and basically it also illustrates for you, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, how interested she is in the federal government, right? Federal government. Although that's not a perfect analogy. It wouldn't be necessarily my go-to choice to use when we talk about federal versus state power. But he was kind of left on his hind legs there. And Dr. Jill Biden was not very happy about that. So why on earth did they pick the lady? Why did they thought they could win with her? I'm sorry. The black population doesn't really like her. The youth doesn't really like her. She doesn't really get counted, shall we say, as an African American, in part because, she's Indian, her dad's from Jamaica, all these other factors. But that's neither here nor there. I guess I would just say she didn't do anything for you. So why'd you pick her? Did Barack really put you up to that one? I think so. I think Barack's running the show, ladies and gentlemen, running the show.